Never stop reading the Bible. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating piece of history from the Bible, specifically Nehemiah chapters 9 and 10. What we're going to see here is a massive, dramatic shift. We're talking about a moment where a really profound spiritual realization completely transforms into this life-changing, on-the-ground community action. It's an amazing look at how an ancient people actually went about structuring a total societal reset.
You know, there's this idea that true revival isn't just an inward feeling. It's a signed agreement to change how we live. And man, does that hit the nail on the head for the returning exiles of Judah. For them, true revival wasn't just this fleeting emotional high, right? It wasn't just about feeling guilty for past mistakes and moving on. Instead, it was a totally rigorous, structured commitment. It was literally an actionable contract to change how their entire society functioned from top to bottom. So let's take a look at exactly how this whole thing started.
Part 1, Nehemiah chapter 9, Repentance and Historical Reflection. Right after the Feast of Tabernacles, the Judah community begins this incredibly deep inward journey.
Okay, check out how organized this National Assembly was on July 24th. They didn't just wing it, they broke the day down with real intention. For the first couple of hours, they're just gathering together. Then, hours 3 and 4, they're reading the book of the law. Next up, hours 5 and 6 are spent actually confessing sins, and finally, hours 7 and 8 are totally dedicated to praising God. It's just this beautiful, logical progression, right? They go straight from hearing the truth to really internalizing it to actually responding.
And during this massive gathering, intermediate leaders actually stepped up to the plate. The Levites, specifically we're talking about guys like Jeshua, Kadmiel, Bani, and Hashabniah, led the people in this really profound prayer of repentance. But what's cool is they didn't just focus on the present. They were called Israel's long, pretty complicated history. They totally owned up to the past failures of their ancestors, but more importantly, they thanked God for keeping his covenant despite all of that. And then they pledged a brand new dedication to his work.
Now here is the absolute crucial pivot in the narrative. All that inward confession, the grief, the deep reflection we just saw in chapter 9, it totally doesn't stop there. That internal realization directly fuels the strict, measurable outward action we see in chapter 10. It's like they're literally taking all those internal convictions and turning them directly into public policy.
Part 2, Sealing the New Covenant through Practical Daily Commitments. This is where Ezra's law-centered movement leads the leaders to quite literally sign their names to a formal binding promise to God.
So what exactly did they agree to? Well, the community swore an absolute oath to obey the law of Moses, and they set up these rigorous daily rules to basically make sure they wouldn't repeat the historical blunders of their ancestors. We're talking strict bans on intermarriage with foreigners. They completely halted all trading and buying on the Sabbath, no business whatsoever. They committed to keeping the sabbatical year. And on top of all that, they promised to put their money where their mouth was. They agreed to pay regular temple taxes, provide grain, burnt and sin offerings, and give their tithes. They systematically hardwired God's law into their everyday routines. Which brings us to a really compelling question. And honestly, it acts as a bit of a historical mirror for us today. How do our internal convictions shape our daily habits? Because the community in Nehemiah, they didn't just have a nice feeling and go home. They completely overhauled their schedules, their marriages, and their bank accounts. It really challenges us to stop and ask if our own deeply held beliefs actually translate into practical, everyday, measurable actions.
I really hope this explainer helped you clearly see that incredible bridge between profound repentance and a structured real-world commitment. The foundational information for today's explainer comes from the Center Studio.